that you started to say. It's like the fires started to were getting better, were going less, and then they started to go up, but the tourists have gone up. There's a story behind there maybe, which you want to communicate, but being careful that you have the evidence for it, which is what hopefully the indicators are part of. Great. Pone. Who's going to be present? Oh, sorry, here's Pone.
Yeah, thanks. So our key question was what's the proportion of land use under sustainable management practices, and the target proposed is by 2020 100% of aquaculture and forestry operations are certified as sustainable. We had two prescribed indicators. The first one is percentage of aquaculture under best practice management. And for all indicators, we selected the responsible ministries, maybe Ministry of Natural Resources, or I don't know exactly the governmental structure of Pune. However, let's suppose that this is the Ministry of Natural Resources, and them we will communicate of our indicators. So the first one is percentage of aquaculture under best practice management. We found that currently there are 18,000 square kilometers covered by aquaculture farms, and only 2 square kilometers of them are not managed as a best practice. So we also can complete the time series of area covered by best practice management of aquaculture, and our message to the government that there is a really great positive trend, but still 10% of aquaculture is not sustainably managed. So you have to go on with your efforts. Regarding this indicator, we've noticed several limitations. The first one is something related to terminology, because the key question is about sustainable management and the proposed indicator is about best practice management. And the relationship between sustainable and best practice is not really clear. And also we've noticed a lack of data for time series dynamics, so we need to, it's better to have the better quality of data. The second prescribed indicator was percentage of commercial forest under certified sustainable management, and there we've noticed different situation. We have decided to represent it as a pie chart showing the whole territory of Pune, and almost half of the territory is covered by forests. 11% of territory is covered by commercial forest, and only 1% of the territory is covered by sustainably certified managed forest. So if we will have a look at the dynamics of percentage of area covered by certified forests, it's still positive, but less impressive than compared to aquaculture. So the message to the government is on the contrary, that only 10% of forests are managed sustainably, and the forest management is much worse than aquaculture management. And finally, you could do better job, guys. And also we've noticed there is some contradiction maybe between the key question and target, because the primary key question is about what's the proportion of land use under sustainable management, and target deals only with aquaculture and forestry, while we have a huge portion of country where with agricultural lands. So we have decided to propose a third indicator related to agriculture, and we've noticed that more than 36,000 square kilometers are agricultural lands. However, only 25 kilometers of it, square kilometers, are covered with certified farms. So the situation is even worse than with the forest. So again, you could do a better job, dear ministers. so that's it.
Any questions or comments from Renee? No, great, good. Just one thing for everybody. If you remember, our definition of an indicator is a measure based on verifiable data that conveys information about more than itself. So also a good practice is always on your graph to say what is the data source. So each time you should write data source and the citation, or where is it from, so that somebody can go back and verify it. Sorry, where and when. Very good. So that it has credibility as well.
If I were you, and I think you were rather too critical to minister, and instead of giving a recipe how to achieve target, you criticized and didn't suggest or produced any good solutions or ideas to the ministry how to proceed further and achieve the target. So if I were you, I criticized, but at the same time I also told how I see the way out, or roadmap out of the situation, and how to achieve the target.
Maybe, yes. It depends on what your role is. So who is actually communicating this as an indicator? Maybe your job is just to actually provide the information and the facts, if you like, and then somebody else then has to decide what to do with that. It may be who are you communicating to? But yes, good. So just to conclude this, then, would one or two people like to say what they learned in doing this exercise? What were their conclusions about communicating, presenting indicators, and perhaps doing it as a group or a teamwork? Would anybody like to say anything on that?
It was much easier as teamwork because each one got a different perspective on the same data and so from their different backgrounds. So I think that enriched the whole process and made it stronger.
Anybody else? Anybody would like to comment on the fact that we were doing this as an exercise, a fictitious country, fictitious data. In any real situation, you would actually probably have some more data than this. You probably would have some GIS system, which would help you with a lot of this, communicating and analyzing and so on. But actually, you came up with a lot of real issues and I think valid points in just doing it with a simple exercise like this. Any comments on that thought of it? Yeah.
I didn't bring it up in the discussion, but I found it frustrating because I want to know what are my neighboring countries so that I can work with other countries to address the same problem, because the climate would be similar, in my neighboring countries. We can work together, like say Central Africa, you have a problem with the gorilla, that kind of gorilla extinction. You can work together with your neighbors to solve problems.
Right.
It's only one country, you don't know who your neighbor is.
Okay.
For me, I think as a reality, working together is very difficult. And so, yes, when you work in the same ministry, you cannot get same decision at the end. And when you decide to work with other organizations and other stakeholders, really it's a really difficult job. And the other thing is the data you mentioned that it's available, but for us many times we have not enough data. Because when you decide to think about, for example, 20 years ago till now, you cannot find a GIS map, and it is difficult many times, and so you cannot show to the audience the reality. And for me, the best that you can show the impact is a map. Map, any kind of map, GIS is the best. But when you show by map, they can see the reality, and they can. It's a concrete example for them, and they can decide for decision makers. And so,
yes, okay. Thank you. So yes, I think maps, but as you did in Malaysia, I think the combination is also very powerful. Maps and graphs, and we encourage in this process to start with your key questions. And to use that to guide it, because there will always be data gaps and indicators that you would like to have to help you answer your key question. But hopefully there's something that you can start with, and it may be that in the process of your updating your strategy and setting targets, it's identifying that these are important questions, really important questions that we have identified stakeholders want to know the answers to. For our country, we do not yet have the data, but part of our targets and strategy for the next 5-10 years is that we have the data to answer these questions. And that may be as far as you can go at this point, but that would still be progress. Okay, I think one question here, and then one there, and then we'll finish these questions.
It's a comment.
Okay.
I think in order to facilitate, to mobilize the decision makers, it's important to have a financial dimension. These data are important, but I think it's better to also have what this data means in terms of risks and opportunities, business, jobs, or what the country is losing or could gain if they change the situation.
Thank you. Okay, and then last question or observation. Was it Wendy?
Yeah, I found it really good to work in a group, because when we sort of had figured out what the data looked like, it was nice to get sort of creativity coming from everybody in the way that we portrayed it, or we could portray it. And I would suggest even, I mean, a bunch of scientists in the room, it would probably be better if you then got a bunch of creative people in on the whole thing at that stage too, and thought of some really nice ways, maybe some high tech or whatever, like nice, fancy ways of portraying it.
Yes, somebody did say can you use audio visuals in doing this, you know, a video or something interactive, a computer. That would be great. Yes, great. We're just finishing up then, and so we've handed out evaluation forms. Please do fill those in for us. We also have some certificates of participation if you would like those. Some of you have arrived since with the first registration, so we have to write those. Just a couple of points to consider on this last exercise. When you're developing and communicating indicators, we recommend to think along this question of narrative. What story are you telling? Now, I know that might feel a bit uncomfortable sometimes, and sort of if you're a scientist, to think of stories. So I'm not talking about a children's story. I'm talking about the narrative of, like as we saw there with forest fires, and how do you communicate this, explaining the subject so that it has a human dimension. So think about that. What is the narrative? What is the story that you're telling about your subject? And as we've just been seeing, of course, understand your data, its limitations, where does it come from, is it suitable for the purpose that you want to use it for. And also, lastly, don't try to answer everything at once. One indicator will really tell you what you really want to know. So you've already started to try and combine indicators, combine them with graphs, maps. But remember, they are only indicators. They indicate something. They're not the answer for everything. So don't try to answer everything at once. Those are some tips that we found. So the time is just about 6 o'clock. Can I just, if anybody wants to make one or two comments or questions. Oh, and I forgot Stuart. Sorry, you were going to say.
A couple of minutes.
Yes, Stuart, please. Can you have a microphone? Stuart's going to talk about how bird life can.
So we've had an interesting afternoon sitting around in groups, looking at these made-up data sets and thinking about how we would develop an indicator from them. Many of you will go home after this conference, and we've heard from people that in some cases it's their job to try and produce this sort of information for your country, whether that's going into an NBSAT or a national report to the CPD or some other kind of environmental reporting. And you might think that it's all very well having these nice exercises, but we don't have any data in our country. Well, that's wrong, because there are a whole suite of global data sets that are out there that you can access the information which is relevant to specifically your country, and use that information to help produce indicators. The IUCN Red List is one of those, but I wanted to, I've got some postcards here that I'm going to pass around in just a moment, because there's lots of information on the BirdLife International website, and we've got country portals there, so you can enter your country name, go to a page, and there are lots of data and lots of information and lots of indicators that you can immediately download. You can work out what are the threatened species in my country, how well covered are the important places for biodiversity, where are the protected areas in relation to those sites, what are the policy processes that are relevant, a whole raft of information. So I'd encourage you when you go home, or if you get on the web here, to have a look at this website and look at it for your particular country and see the information that's already there. And I'll pass these around now so you've got the web link. Thanks.
So the website is So the website is www.birdlife.org/datazone, and it really is a fantastic resource designed exactly for you guys to have data to support your strategies and target setting and indicators. So please do take these cards. Okay, so we're going to finish now. I'd like to thank you all for your excellent participation. It's been a really pleasurable, enjoyable afternoon working with you on this. Please do fill out the evaluation forms. Please do come and see us if you want a certificate of participation. And is there anybody who would just like to say one or two words at this point, or should we finish? Thank you. Great, thank you. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of the World Conservation Congress.
We should thank Philip and Tristan for facilitating this afternoon and giving us a great